Hi guys, today's lesson is on going from a rule to a table, and that's what this arrow means right here, going from a rule to a table. All right, there's a few steps that you're going to have to take here. First off, set up an XY table. Again, you're going to be given a rule, and you're going to have to find the table. All right. 2, make up X values. Try to include both positive and negative integers. All right, and we'll go over a couple of examples here shortly. 3, solve for y by substituting in the x values. Solve for y by substituting in the x values. Let's take a look at an example here. And again, if you need to pause this and write it down, please do so. All right, in today's lesson, they're going to give you a rule. Here's our first rule, y equals 4x plus 3. And remember, we talked about that this means y equals 4 times whatever x is plus 3. And why we write it as 4x plus 3. 4 times x plus 3. All right. I'm going to make myself an XY table here. And when I make my XY table, I can either make it up and down, like I have right here, vertical, or I can make it across, horizontal. Just kind of depends on your preference there. You're going to see it both ways. All right. So let's take a look at our x values here. And I've included both negative and positive integers. And if you're asking, well, how many do I have to make? Kind of depends on the question that's being asked, all right? And also, if they want you to graph it, you should be able to tell in the question how many points you want to graph. At least try to include some negative and positive integers, all right? So my first value that I see for x is -2. And it tells me to solve for y by simply just substituting in -2 for x and then solving for y. Okay, so I'm going to replace x with my x values here and solve for y. Let's take a look at the first example here. I have -2. I can see right now that I have here 4 times -2 plus 3. 4 times -2 plus 3. So what is 4 times -2? Well, you guys know that that is -8. And -8 plus 3 then is -5. And so now I see, when I come back over here to my table, I see here that when x is -2, y is -5. I just solved for y, substituting in -2 for x. Now I'm just going to go through this process, and you're going to do the same thing with these numbers here. I'm not going to show the work off to the side. I'm just going to go through it verbally. If you need to show the work off to the side, please do so. So now we have -1. Well, what is 4 times -1? Well, you would tell me that's -4, and then I have to add 3 to that, which would give me -1. So when x is -1, y is -1. All right, now I have x is 0. All right, 4 times 0 is 0. 0 plus 3 is 3. Maybe you're starting to see a pattern here with the y values to eventually to the point where you're not going to have to go through this process. But for right now, please do so. I'm going to substitute in 1. 4 times 1 is 4, plus 3 is 7. And finally, my last one here, I have 4 times 2, which is 8. 8 plus 3, which is 11. So you can see now, here are my y values over here on the right-hand side, and on the left-hand side were my x values, which I just made up. All right? All right, let's take a look at another example here. Let's take a look at another example. This time, we have a different rule here. This time we have a different rule. Y equals -3x plus 5. Notice again, I just made up my x values. Tried to include some negative integers, some positive integers in 0 there. All right? So we're going to take a look here first at -1. What is -3 times -1? When I substitute in -1 for x. Well, if I asked you that question, -3 times -1 is +3. Again, notice when I substituted in for x, I'm putting a parenthesis around the -1. It tells me now that I need to multiply these two numbers, and a negative times a negative is a positive. All right, and now ask yourself the question, what's 3 plus 5? And you would say that is 8. All right, So when x is -1, y is 8. And notice we have now a table that is going across, okay? All right. Now, if I asked you what's -3 times 0, you would tell me that's 0. And then 0 plus 5 is 5. 0 plus 5 is 5. All right, and let's look at the last two values here. I'll just go ahead and show you these. When I plug in 1 for x, what is -3 times 1? Well, you would tell me that that's -3. And then -3 plus 5 would be +2. All right, and then finally my last value here, I have x is 2. If I asked you, okay, what's -3 times 2? You would tell me that's -6. And then -6 plus 5 is -1. So now I've completed here going from a rule to a table. Just remember a couple things. You make up the x values, try to include both negative and positive integers, all right? And make sure when you substitute in for x that you're putting a parenthesis around the number that you're substituting in for, okay? All right, thank you guys.